Another incredible story of materialization, which should bring great comfort and warmth to anybody that's bereaved, and in particular, somebody that has actually lost a child, comes from Alf and Gwen Byrne, who lost their son Russell when he was 9 years of age. I'll let Gwen tell her own story. Gwen, thank you for inviting me to your home today, and what an amazing story you have to tell. It's all contained in your own book, Russell, but in your own words, how did it all begin?
Well, it began in 1963, 14th of August. Russell suddenly passed on with cancer in just a few weeks. And naturally we were devastated, having lost my parents as well at the same time. So after a few months I decided to look into life after death. So I began to search through clairvoyant mediums first. And I did this right up till maybe 1968, 69 roughly.
Did you have a belief in the afterlife?
I didn't know anything about the afterlife at all. I didn't even know the word medium, psychic, anything like that. I had no knowledge of anything. I was brought up without any religion of any kind, I'm pleased to say. And I searched, and after about 5 years, I was sure, yes, there was a spirit world. And so I just got on with my life. The other children were there and had to be looked after, you know, and carried on living. And then the most wonderful thing happened on the 14th of August, 1982. I mean, you have to get the exact story from Alf, because he was here when the phone call came. I was at Stansted Hall when the phone call came to say that Russell had come through at a physical phenomena circle, and could he speak to his mum and dad.
Some way away from
yes, oh, about maybe 2 hours away, maybe more, depending on traffic. And so we couldn't go till the following Saturday.
Did you know these people from whom the message came?
No.
So you didn't know anything about it?
No, and I heard of them briefly, but that's all.
So Russell actually gave the information
yes, he gave
himself through the medium that somebody else took down?
Yes, a newspaper reporter from Psychic News.
Really?
And he rang Alf.
Yes. Right.
And that was right on his anniversary, 19th anniversary of his passing.
Good heavens. Yes. And he gave the telephone, your telephone number?
Yes.
To the reporter?
Yes.
And this was some 300 miles away from where you were?
Said, could he speak to Mum and Dad?
Good heavens. What happened then?
Well, we dashed up there the following Saturday, and we met the lovely people, invited us in, and I mean, we'd never been to anything like this before. And before we knew where we were sitting in this room, dark room, of course, and they were using a trumpet at that time. And he just came towards us, the trumpet, and said, hello, Mum, hello, Dad. I forget the exact words, you know, right now at this moment, but he began to sing to both of us, and he sang, Where is Love, from Oliver.
Gwen, can I just stop you there, because I think people might be slightly confused when we talk about a trumpet. A trumpet is something that's used at these sittings, so that the voice can be carried, is that right?
That's right, yes. A bit like we use microphones in this world. It's similar, isn't it?
Yes, yes.
And he began to sing to us. And
you
he
couldn't
also...
see anything at this stage?
Pardon?
You didn't see
No, we didn't see. That was the very early stages, before the actual independent voice came in. This was trumpet phenomena. And he also gave us a piece of a willow tree. I don't know whether it was our willow tree or anybody else's, but he apported a piece of willow tree about that big.
And that was a physical thing?
Yes, that was the first apport that we had. And I've still got it actually, but it's a bit tatty now. And he sung, I mean, there's a line in the song, is it, underneath the willow tree? You know, so everybody knows this song.
How did the piece of willow materialise? How did it come to you?
Well, it just, I mean, at the time, we didn't know, it just landed on my lap. That's for you, Mum, he said. And then the whole evening went on. The newspaper reporter was there that evening, And from then on, we went regularly, and it went on from trumpet phenomena to independent voice, and this wonderful scenes of energy that just splashed around the room. Amazing energy.
Now, that's a very interesting point, Gwen, from where this video is concerned. We're very interested in the energy,
yes.
and in scientific explanations for the
yes.
energy. How did you see the energy? How did it manifest?
Well, it's a bit, the only way I could describe it is a bit like lightning, only no noise, just like flashes. Amazing. And there they are standing there.
So then you had real forms.
And it's so quick, you see. I mean, it's like this almost, a flash of energy, and you see the forms standing there. But this went on for, we went for years. Sometimes I stayed for a week, and there'd be sittings every evening. And then Alf would come up of a weekend, and it graduated into independent voice, where the voices would come just almost out of the ceiling.
So actually this was, as you were going up on a fairly regular basis, so the sort of strength of the sitting and the strength of the medium was increasing.
Oh, amazing.
So you were getting a stronger phenomena every time that you went there.
Yes, amazing. And then, of course, we had the apple of the Pink Panther, which I still have, but he's fallen to bits now. And this was when he asked me to form a club for mothers to pass on this wonderful news that their children are not dead. They've just gone on before them. And so this is what I did. But over the years we had the most wonderful experiences. We saw transfiguration, which was wondrous. Materialisation, we didn't see the usual kind with ectoplasm, but we saw the energy. And how can you describe energy? It takes a physicist surely to describe that. I mean, I can't describe energy other than it was like flashing lights.
And let me get this clear. So from this field of energy, it was like a field of energy which was flashing. You actually had forms developing within that.
Well, without actually standing there, you could see the forms standing there. But this didn't happen every night, don't get me wrong, it only happened occasionally. They would say to us first, the spirit people would say, now sit still, we're going to try an experiment. And we'd sit still like this, all agog waiting. And then this wonderful happening would occur.
Were there many people at these sittings, Gwen?
Well, most nights when I was there may be about 5. You see, we had to come home every Sunday night. Sometimes I'd stay up there for a week, and then Alf would come up. We went up most weekends. But it graduated from then on into more and more wonderful things.
Tell us about that.
Well, we had times when we had this wonderful opera singer would come and sing to us. And we used to duet together, which was absolutely a wonderful thing that happened. And she would come and hold Alf's hand and hold my hand and sing to us.
Did she look physical, or how did she...
Well, when you held her hand, you could tell it was a dainty lady's little hand, and she actually showed us her little dainty toe shoes, little, the sort of thing they wear now. And when you danced with her, as Alf did and my eldest son did, they put her hand on their shoulder so they could sway like this in time to the music, and they could feel her hair and see the gossamer silk of her dress. And she lifted her arms up. In the energy, all the energy filled with all this lovely lace.
Gwen, do you realise how fantastic this sounds?
Yes, I do.
People are watching this programme, and you've experienced this. It sounds fantastic.
It is fantastic. It's wondrous.
How physical did the forms become eventually?
As real as you.
As real as me. Now, we've heard this before. We've heard it right through this video, that these forms were as physical as I am.
Yeah.
And that if you held hands, it would be like holding hands with
me,
or
me holding hands
with you. Yes,
it is exactly how it was.
That must be such an experience.
It is an experience. It literally blows your mind.
Yes.
You have to be sort of prepared for it, I think.
Yes. Well,
I think we were.
You were telling me earlier on about, I think it was a friend of yours that maybe it was eldest son, was it?
Yes, her eldest
that
son.
actually attended one of
Yes,
these
he
sittings
attended his first one.
and left the room saying, "What is going on in
Oh
there?"
my God, he said, "What's going on in there, Mother?"
Yeah, that's the sort of reaction.
Yeah, I mean,
one
it
would
literally does this to you.
Yeah.
At first. But as we've always said, Alf and I, we never ever became complacent about it. We always thought upon it as something really wondrous, didn't we? There was no other way, you know. We couldn't just be complacent about such a wonderful thing happening. And he used to come and sing to us, and we'd have duets together, and he'd be dancing around the room, and he'd be racing around the room in a pair of shoes with luminous paint on them. And so you'd see these little feet running around the room. And he was so funny, Russell. He was funny when he was on Earth, and obviously still funny.
You must bring tremendous comfort to your Pink Panther ladies and gents that have lost children.
Well, this is what I was told to do. He asked me to do this, so I've done it, and I think I do, yes. Yes, I do.
So when did the physical phenomena stop then, Gwen? What?
Well, the last time we went was 1989, and that was the last one. And we'd witnessed wonders over the years. And he came that night as a man, which floored us both, actually. It wasn't this boy's voice speaking, it was this young man's voice speaking.
Which you're suggesting is that
He's grown up.
that in the next world,
Yes.
in spirit,
Yeah.
in the etheric,
Yes.
all these ways that we describe this next world, that he continues to mature
Yes.
as he would have done
Yeah.
on Earth.
But there's no old age. They only reach maturity roughly about 35, I'm told.
Is that right?
When we talked, we asked him.
Yes. Did you ask a lot of questions about that?
Oh, thousands.
Yeah. What was your main impression? What was the impression that you got about the other world which was strongest and clearest?
Well, only in my opinion, it's just another step on from this one, and it's a sort of a similar world, except it's not physical. This is the piece that people find hard to grasp, don't they?
Well, this is again what comes through in the new science of, for instance, Ron Pearson, who we spoke to earlier in the programme, that he's saying that actually these are worlds within worlds.
That's right, yeah, that's what I believe.
And that these worlds could be interacting in this room as we're speaking. It's very, very difficult to comprehend.
It is, and yet
But you've had actual evidence of that.
Yeah, but you need a physical medium for it to happen. This is the problem. There aren't that many around.
Yeah. And it was very interesting when we were talking earlier, and we're not going to talk about names of mediums and things for fairly obvious reasons, but you were saying that there's no great benefit in this to the actual deep trance medium because they don't remember anything.
Well, they wake up after about 4 or 5 hours in trance, and everyone's excitedly talking about the wonders that have happened, and they've seen nothing. Absolutely nothing. They're just sitting there longing for a coffee.
Yes. Do you agree that the medium really is the person that just sorts out the wavelengths?
Yes, oh yes. They've got the chemicals, I believe, but then, see, I don't understand all the scientific side of it, and I'm pleased I don't really, because it isn't my thing.
Yes. And you've written this. Your book is entitled Russell.
Yeah.
And you was telling me that's taken nearly 30 years.
I started it in 1964, and I had to wait for the ending. And the last time we were there in 1989, he said, "Mum," as a young man he spoke, he said, "Mother, I promise you that I will give you the ending through someone, somehow." And he obviously knew that was the last time. And it came through one of my mothers, as a young man explaining about his passing into spirit and what he wanted to do now, his work over there in spirit, with all the gang of young men, mostly young men, his gang. There's only one girl amongst them, two actually.
Something else you which is close to my heart, Gwen, that you mentioned that Russell has communicated to you that he's now actually involved in work, which is centering around explanations for the sort of phenomena which took place.
Yes, it's telling me all about it.
It's telling you how it worked.
I mean, I don't, as I said before, I don't understand it, but to read it is quite interesting, more than interesting.
You don't understand.
I don't understand it at all.
He's using at all.
No.
It's amazing. I mean, you're talking to you're talking to me as if your relationship is still going on with your son.
Oh, it is. I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's never stopped. It's never gone anywhere. Just out of my sight. I mean, your other children move away and marry, don't they? But he's just grown up in maybe like another country. Let's put it like that.
That's a lovely way of putting
Well,
it.
it's the only way, really, isn't it? It is another country, but it's just out of our sight.
Can you imagine, Gwen, the sort of comfort that this interview will give to people that have just lost their children or loved ones? And also in your book, Russell, you know, this is an enormous source of strength to people.
Yes.
And I'm really very, very grateful that you've given me the time to talk to you today and share that hope.
Thank you very much.
Gwen Byrne, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Alf, you were also privileged to experience this extraordinary phenomena in, where was it now? Was it in Manchester?
In the Midlands, yeah.
In the Midlands,
yeah.
Would you say in the Midlands? Yeah.
Yes.
So how did you react to all this?
Well, my initial reaction to it was almost disbelief. I think I have to put it like that. Even though we'd had this wonderful evidence over the years, primarily evidence that Gwen had taken.
This was evidence leading up to
physical this, but I mean it was in-depth evidence. But even so, I must be honest and say that the hard work, the grafting was done by Gwen, and I took the phone call late at night.
This was a phone call
from the Midlands.
From the Midlands, that this was the communication from Russell in spirit.
In spirit.
That gave your telephone number, which started this.
They gave the telephone number through a series of knocks on the table. That's how hard and how difficult it was to start with. It wasn't a sort of straightforward thing, here's a number from Rayleigh, ring it. It was a case of questions and answers on the table. And the young man who rang me was a journalist, a very well-known journalist, and he said that, I have a message for you from your son. And I said, well, how did you get a message from my son? And he told me that it had been spelt out by a series of knocks on the table. And he said, I have a message for his mum. Would I give it? Well, the conversation started almost disbelievingly, and it went on for probably half an hour, just flowing with the information, and we were invited up to the circle.
Extraordinary, extraordinary thing. You must have felt really weird.
Well, it's more than extraordinary, because you read about things like that. It's like most things, you say, you can read about it, but it never happens to you. And when it does happen, it's disbelief. I mean, it has to be, because if you think to yourself, it's as easy as that. But after a while, you think, well, I wonder.
There were, we were talking earlier, and we won't mention names at this stage, but at the later, let's call them later experiments or later sittings, you actually did have people with a scientific background and bias and position that attended these sittings.
Yes.
That's right, isn't it? And yet they seem to be very reluctant to come forward and actually state that they witnessed these things, as you're telling me and as Gwen has told me, and many other people are quite prepared openly to talk about. It seems that it's a no-go area as far as the scientist is concerned at the moment. How do you feel about that?
Well, I'm not surprised. I mean, science has to have proof. It was ever thus. I mean, there has to be a formulae for most things. They have to be able to say A plus B equals whatever. And it's understandable. I don't expect... It'll be a while before somebody will stand on a platform. Or I don't suppose anybody would ever do it without proof. But I mean, I looked at it in the old days and I thought, will these people say what we have seen? We could say it because it was part of us. We'd seen something that was unbelievable, if you like. I couldn't expect that any one of these people would stand on a platform and say that we've seen something today that we don't understand, but we know we've seen it. They're scientists.
The great scientists of the past, like Sir William Crookes and Louis Baird was another one.
Yes.
Sir Oliver Lodge.
Yes.
these people did it, didn't they, to their utter detriment.
Well, they did it, and they suffered.
They were great, great scientists.
Exactly.
With marvellous inventions, and they were destroyed for daring to say that this phenomena was right and that it did exist.
Well, I don't think they were destroyed so much because they were big men, they were very powerful men, but what they did, they left a legacy that people are now picking up on.
Right.
They were brave people, they took a lot of courage.
Yes.
But I wouldn't go so far as to say where they were destroyed. They left an awful lot behind them.
Yes.
They were able to publish it.
I really meant by they were socially humiliated.
They probably were outcasts.
Derided, yes.
By their own types, yes.
Despite the fact that they were actually responsible for some of the greatest inventions of our time.
Yes.
Yes.
And I think it's ever thus. I mean, it'll happen again, I'm sure.
Yes. So, what is your feeling about that, Alf? I mean, do you think that the scientific evidence, for instance, which I've got contained within this video, based on the work of Ron Pearson, how long do you think it's going to be before the new idea, if you like, is introduced that we all survive death?
It depends on how much effort people are prepared to put into it. I mean, we're told that behind the scenes there are all sorts of things going on. It's like most things. If you throw a small amount of effort at something, it'll take a long time. But if the powers that be are prepared to concentrate, that's all it needs. An effort, a concentrated effort, by those people who can, if you like, do it. Yeah. They've got the wherewithal to do it, they've got the ability, they've got the thought patterns to be able to decide if it is or if it isn't. Yeah. And there's enough evidence, there's enough information. Yes. Then yet, time, it can be done.
Yes. And a question which I've asked before on many occasions, and like your response to it, how do you feel that's going to affect people in general? The knowledge that we all survive death.
Well, it's going to turn an awful lot of things upside down. I think an awful lot of the Orthodox religion believes that there's another world anyway. The only thing that it doesn't have is proof. It doesn't set out to prove it. The peace of mind it's going to give to an awful lot of people will be colossal, providing it's not like we've always said, Gwen and I, when we've talked about it, if you get blasé about something, then it becomes nothing. You've got to see not so much that it tells you there's a life hereafter, but what are we going to do with that knowledge? Are we then going to be able to link in and use the knowledge that they've got to better our lives here? It's not just a case of knowing. You've got to be able to use that information to some end. That's where the pluses will come.
Right. Alf Byrne, thank you very much indeed.
Pleasure.